Today's new Strixhaven spoilers have brought us the biggest gamble in Magic the Gathering history. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, we are here today for the simple pleasure of talking about Magic cards. And speaking of which, because of all the things that have been happening recently, the last couple of days haven't been dedicated to Strixhaven spoilers. I am very behind in terms of all of the spoiler cards. So aside from the card we're going to focus on today, I'm going to be doing a live stream over on my Hatcher channel where I'm going to go over all of the spoilers, or at least try to. I don't even know how many I've missed, but we're going to do a big spoiler stream over there. So I'll have the link for that down at the top of the comment section. Now, as I said, we are here today to talk about the biggest gamble in Magic the Gathering history. We're going to be talking about Fervent Mastery, okay? So, this card is 2 red and 3 mana for a sorcery that says you may pay 2 and 2 red rather than paying the spell's mana cost. So right off the bat, you can cast it for either 4 or 5, which I thought felt a little bit weird. That's different. You don't normally see alternate costs that are just the same casting cost reduced by 1. So that immediately got my curiosity level up a bit. I was like, okay, what's going on with this card? And then I read the second part where I was like, okay, 2 and 2 red. So if the 2 and 2 red cost was paid, an opponent discards any number of cards, then draws that many cards. And when I read that line, my brain went, okay, who in their right mind is going to want to cast this variation of the spell? Like, why in the world would you want to pay 4 mana to actually go ahead and say to your opponent, by the way, go ahead and discard all the garbage from your hand and draw a bunch of new stuff? It's like, no. That sounds terrible. So then I finally get to the last part of the card and it all clicks together, where it says, search your library for up to 3 cards, put them into your hand, shuffle, then discard 3 cards at random. And there's a whole bunch of thoughts that flowed through my mind at that moment. One was, wow, searching through your deck for 3 cards is pretty powerful. That actually made me go, okay, I could actually see scenarios where going, you know what, I'm going to let you filter your hand through discarding and drawing so that I can basically search through my deck faster, right? You can do it 1 turn faster if you pay the 4 mana. And also, you theoretically would have more cards in your hand at that point if it was still at the beginning of the game. So you'd have a better chance of keeping the cards that were all random, like not randomly picked, sorry. The cards you have selected. If you have more cards in your hand, then there's a smaller chance that you're going to lose the cards that you've selected. That is what I was trying to say. Now, the reason that I have called this card Magic's biggest gamble is literally because this card is essentially gamble times 3. So let's take a look at gamble. Now, gamble is an old school card that exists from the time of the Urza block. So it's really old school. We're talking back in the 90s. But the version that I'm using here on the screen is actually my favorite variant of gamble because there are a number of different artworks for it. So gamble is a very straightforward card and concept that I genuinely enjoy quite a bit. It's a 1 red sorcery. You search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, discard a card at random, and obviously shuffle your deck because you've looked through it. So the idea is really straightforward and ties really well into Red's color pie concept and the overall underlying, like, driving motivations of red mages, because each of the different colors of Magic are aligned with different properties. Like, black has a power at any cost kind of scenario, and it's in a, like, paying life and sacrificing creatures in a darker sort of variant, where red also is willing to make sacrifices for power, but it's born out of a less dark and more passion-fueled location. Do you know what I mean? Like, the underlying idea with red is that it's like, red is like, now. I don't care what I have to sacrifice. I want to make this short-term sort of passionate thing happen, right? Now, their discard, it usually is more along the lines of discarding cards, right? And like a random sort of all right, I'm going to give up these resources, or a spell that's basically like, boom, I'm going to cast this spell. It's a one-shot mana boost. You know what I mean? And it's like, this is going to accelerate me towards my goal. So red has the same recklessness that black's like the black color does, but it just manifests itself in a slightly different way. And the gambly nature, like with black, obviously black has the best tutors to begin with, but with black, it's more likely to have an ability sacrifice a creature to get particular knowledge. Black isn't playing around, so it's not going to do a tutor effect and then go, well, I guess I didn't get the card I was looking for. Like, that is not how black works. But red is like, yo, I'll go for this Hail Mary shot. I may or may not win, but if I do, it'll be spectacular. So it literally is a gamble, and that feels so very red. Now, the flavor text for this card says, as she triggered yet another trap, Chira realized what she thought was the goblin word for easy probably wasn't. Now, I like this. Red is one of the colors that tends to get more comedic sort of flavor text because it's a less serious color. Red is very much like, I'm like, you think about Mono Red Rush, right? It's basically like, I'm going to pull your face off in a few moments, or I'm just not going to do it at all. It's burn everything you got to get where you need to be. And so this gamble idea ties right into it. And the artwork is great because it gives that Indiana Jones kind of vibe where, like, in the artwork, the spell you're searching for would be the jewel that she's got there. And there are all these traps flying around and whatever, so you can see it's a risky scenario. It would be easy enough for an errant spear trap to literally knock that gem loose. It goes tumbling off into a chasm. There's any number of ways that the treasure can be lost. And so it's just this sort of attitude of, yes, I'm going to take the chance to try and get this prize. And that's got a really red feel. And I think that Gamble is honestly one of the best designed Magic cards in terms of the entire package concept. The name is perfect. It's only one red to do it. The idea of searching through your deck for a card, but having the possibility of losing it is distinctively red. So honestly, it is just right up there for me in terms of card design combined with flavor and the perfect marriage of a Magic card. So returning to Fervent Mastery, clearly it's the biggest gamble because it allows you to search for 3 different cards, right? Which is a crazy amount of cards. Now, obviously, at the same time, you have the risk of hitting those cards with the 3 discards. But, I mean, if you have a decent amount of cards in your hand, if you have 5 cards in your hand, you know what I mean? Including the 3 that you've just tutored for, there's 2 cards that aren't the ones you went to search for. So there's a decent chance you're going to get to keep at least one of them. In one way, this card is less of a gamble than Gamble because it just feels like you have a better chance to keep at least one of the cards, right? I don't know. That could just be a gut feeling, and the math behind it all might work out differently, but it doesn't change how I feel. Now, Fervent Mastery is a really cool concept card that has a bunch of different interesting things going on with it. One of the interesting things is actually in regards to the alternate casting cost of paying 2 and 2 red, and then if you do that, an opponent discards any number of cards. So it doesn't say target opponent, right? So it's not something that you have to actually specifically have a target for, and this won't apply to all of your opponents if you're a commander player, and that makes a huge difference, because if it said each opponent can do that, then it makes the card considerably less attractive to commander players, and commander players are a big market for Wizards right now. So just interesting to note that. Now, I like the way that at first this artwork, when I looked at it, I went, you know what? I like the artwork, but it genuinely just feels like a burn spell. Let's be real. You've got this magic all flying around and everything like that. But the thing is, the only amount of magic, like the only amount of fire magic that's actually trailing down to the person over there, which in this case would be your opponent, is just like a trickle of the fire magic. So it actually changed my perspective of what I see this art as. The idea now is basically you have this, like, you're this intense master of fire magic. Like everyone knows what mastery means, but fervent is currently used to mean like very passionate, perhaps even overly enthusiastic. And that part kind of ties in to the concept here, where you're using this fire magic to just burn through your own mind, right? You're literally tearing through your own mind to search for these particular cards. And then the effect of discarding 3 cards is the fire magic burning it away from your mind. So you just send this fire magic barreling into your skull. You've mastered fire magic to the degree where you can literally use it to coax things from your mind and also burn them away. It's like, even with your level of mastery, it's not perfect, but you've achieved something that most red mages could only dream of, right? And then there's the extra level where if you cast it for 4 mana, then your opponent gets this beneficial sort of scenario. And that's how I envision the artwork. This is a mage who's decided they just straight up can't wait. They don't have the time to be messing around here. And so they've just sent the fire magic funneling into their brain. But because they haven't used as much mana in the casting of the spell, it's not as focused. So a tendril of that ends up getting siphoned off and slamming into the other planeswalker's brain. And as a result, they're not able to like tear through their memories the same way because they don't have control over the magic, but there's just enough there for them to grasp onto to mold their hand so they can discard cards and then draw cards, which isn't as powerful as tutoring, but still is a really interesting concept for a spell. So for me, that is a really cool level of flavor, and I dig the artwork for the mage standing there with the book floating up in the air. It kind of makes me think of, I don't know if you guys have watched Black Clover, but I really dig that show. And there's a lot of the grimoires floating around stuff, and that feels very magic-y. And I enjoy the visual trappings of things like that. And also, there's the extra level that it's just even more, it induces more awe because the book itself, we all know books are made of paper, right? They're not going to stand up against flames, but it's just floating there like it's got no cares in the world. Not going to catch on fire or anything. And I really enjoy that. Either way, I saw this card and went, dude, this is really cool on multiple levels. It's going to be today's spoiler discussion. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm going to be doing a live stream over on my other channel where we go through all of the spoiler cards and have a good time chatting and doing all that and saying all the words that I don't say on this channel. So, thanks for coming by, my friends. List of my patrons is scrolling on by right now. Other than that, all I have to say is I will see you guys next time.